By 5 p.m., the last wave of bombers has returned to base. Exhausted crews step onto tarmac slick with oil and dew, helmets in hand, eyes still scanning the sky as if expecting one more threat. The air smells of fuel, sweat, and a lingering tang of cordite. Silence falls in the command post, broken only by the crackle of radios still reporting minor incidents and the soft murmur of officers tallying losses. From high above Regensburg, reconnaissance planes take their final passes. Black smoke still curls from factories, fire stubbornly consuming what remains. Streets and rail lines are fractured. Roofs lie twisted like paper, and the skeletal frames of once busy assembly lines stand as grim monuments to the power of modern warfare. General Ira Eaker watches the photographs, his eyes scanning the devastation, trying to reconcile the precision of planning with the raw, chaotic reality below. The full impact of the campaign begins to crystallize. Intelligence reports indicate a drastic reduction in Germany's ball bearing production, vital components for tanks, aircraft, and artillery. Supplies to the front lines are delayed or destroyed entirely. German commanders scramble, assessing what can be salvaged, but the damage is irreversible in the short term. Eaker realizes, with a mixture of satisfaction and unease, that the strategic aim has succeeded. Germany's industrial heart has been struck, potentially tipping the balance of the war, but the human toll is unmistakable. Memorials of twisted metal and charred wood mark the spaces where workers once toiled. Each shattered window, each collapsed roof, represents lives interrupted or lost. Pilots speak quietly of the civilians glimpsed from the air, faces frozen in the sudden panic of smoke and fire. Even as victory is measured in statistics and supply chain disruption, the human cost lingers in every mind. Interestingly, the mission also demonstrated the evolving art of warfare. Coordination between bomber squadrons, navigation accuracy, timing of attacks, and high-altitude precision bombing would influence countless operations afterward. These 12 hours were not only a test of strategy but of human endurance, courage, and the psychological strain of watching destruction unfold in real time. Pilots, bombardiers, and gunners carried both the adrenaline of mission success and the weight of moral reflection, a duality that would haunt many for the rest of their lives. Back at Aberdeen and other command centers, analysts compile the data. Each photograph, report, and wire communication is dissected. The lessons learned from Regensburg inform future operations. How high should bombers fly to minimize losses? How precise can timing be coordinated across hundreds of aircraft? What are the psychological effects on crews witnessing massive destruction for hours? The answers shape strategy, influencing Allied missions in the months and years that follow. Yet, even with all the facts, there is an emotional undercurrent that statistics cannot capture. The sheer scale of what humans can both build and destroy is overwhelming. A factory that once produced precision components essential to an army's machinery now lies in rubble. The engineers and workers who created it are displaced, the machines melted or twisted, and the streets around it scarred forever. For the Allied commanders who observed from a distance, there is triumph, but also an undeniable sense of the price paid in human endeavor and life. As night falls over Regensburg, the smoke continues to curl, illuminated by lingering fires. The city is quiet now, the chaos subsiding into a haunting stillness. Pilots clean their gear, officers finish tallying reports, and Eaker steps outside, feeling the cold evening air against his face. He reflects on the 12-hour campaign, how precision, courage, and determination reshaped not just a factory, but potentially the trajectory of the war. And yet, he cannot ignore the duality of progress and destruction, of strategic necessity and human cost. In the months that follow, historians and military analysts would study Regensburg as a pivotal moment in the Allied strategic bombing campaign. It demonstrated the limits of German industrial resilience, the evolving role of air power in modern warfare, and the psychological complexity faced by those orchestrating mass destruction from the sky. The lessons extend far beyond military tactics. They speak to the responsibility inherent in wielding overwhelming power, and the enduring imprint of human courage, ingenuity, and suffering. Ultimately, the 12-hour bombing campaign stands as a testament to the extraordinary human and technological effort of World War II. It reminds us that history is measured not only in victories and losses, but in the choices, risks, and consequences borne by those on the front lines and behind the command desks. The factories were reduced to rubble, yes, but the echoes of bravery, fear, and moral reflection continue to resonate decades later, offering modern audiences a chance to understand the full spectrum of human experience in war. As we look back, one question remains: how do we reconcile the necessity of decisive action with the weight of its consequences? The answer may never be simple, but in understanding it, we honor the complexity of history, the endurance of the human spirit, and the lessons left by a world forever changed by courage, strategy, and the relentless power of flight. By 7:30 a.m., the first wave of bombers reaches Regensburg. Below, the factories stretch across several city blocks, concrete skeletons bristling with smokestacks and rooftops lined with steel. From the air, the labyrinth of assembly lines and warehouses looks almost peaceful, an illusion of normalcy that will soon be shattered. Inside the cockpit of a B-17 Flying Fortress, the pilot's hands are tight on the yoke. The sky around him is a dizzying expanse of blue, broken only by his formation, the vapor trails of wingmen, and the distant flashes of anti-aircraft fire. The smell of heated oil and gunpowder clings to the cramped cabin, mixing with the faint sweat of a dozen men packed into metal and canvas. Engines hum, then roar, and the vibration shakes through the bones of the men as bombs armed and ready sit beneath the fuselage, each one heavier than fear itself. The lead bombardier adjusts his sight, calculating altitude, speed, and wind drift. Seconds feel like minutes as he aligns the crosshairs over the first target. Outside, the city below is still waking, unaware of the approaching storm. At 7:45 a.m., the first bombs fall. They land with a sharp concussive punch, sending clouds of smoke and fire spiraling skyward. The initial explosions ripple across the factory roofs, shattering glass, bending steel, and igniting fuel stores. Pilots glance down, the earth trembling beneath them, and a sense of awe mixes with guilt. A factory that once produced thousands of precision ball bearings, essential to tanks, aircraft, and artillery, is now erupting in chaos. Minutes later, German flak batteries begin to respond. Bursts of orange and black arcs bloom against the sky, shaking the bombers as rounds explode too close for comfort. One B-17 rocks violently, aluminum groaning under pressure, but the formation holds. The gunners fire back, their faces pale but determined, tracking the silhouettes of enemy fighters diving from clouds. In the midst of the chaos, a sense of grim routine takes hold: drop bombs, evade fire, maintain formation, survive. By 9 a.m., more waves of bombers join in. The sky is crowded, a mosaic of aircraft carrying destruction. Observers on the ground in Allied command posts track every movement, noting targets hit, enemy responses, and bomber losses. Communications crackle, target visual, bomb release in 10 seconds. Bombs away. Each phrase is precise, rehearsed, but the weight behind it is enormous. One remarkable fact from the Schweinfurt, Regensburg mission: over 376 B-17s participated, dropping thousands of bombs on factories producing nearly 40% of Germany's ball bearings. These were not just numbers on a chart, each explosion disrupted a critical supply chain. The ripple effect would be felt on German tanks, aircraft, and artillery units at the front lines. Engineers and planners on both sides understood this: precision in production, precision in destruction. Meanwhile, back over the factories, workers scramble, trying to protect machinery, shields of brick and concrete offering little defense. Smoke rises in thick columns, licking the clouds. Windows shatter, steel bends, and a chorus of alarms wails across the city. The ground shakes with each detonation. Amidst it all, human instinct, fear, hope, desperation, plays out in small, fleeting moments. One worker shields a child. Another tries to carry vital schematics to a hidden safe. But fire spreads faster than human hands can respond. The bombing campaign is relentless. Waves follow waves. By noon, crews are exhausted, muscles tight from hours of holding controls, eyes burned from smoke and sunlight reflecting off metallic roofs. Communication is constant: the crackle of radios, the shouted commands, the unspoken understanding between men who know that any misstep could be fatal. A pilot writes later in his memoir, "The sky was alive with fire and steel. You could see the smoke from miles away, smell it, taste it. And yet, you had no choice but to fly into it again." These words capture the paradox of strategic bombing: victory is measured in rubble, but human cost is immediate and intimate. By mid-afternoon, reports arrive: the factories are largely destroyed. Some buildings stand, skeletal frames of twisted metal and concrete, but production has ground to a halt. Bomb damage assessment photographs taken from reconnaissance planes confirm what commanders feared and hoped. Hundreds of tons of bombs, meticulously dropped, had turned the heart of the German war industry into a smoldering wasteland. Interestingly, Allied commanders had to plan these missions not only for effectiveness but also for survivability. The Luftwaffe was still active, and flak positions were deadly. Losses were significant, dozens of aircraft and hundreds of airmen lost in a single day. Every commander in the command post knew each report of destruction was paired with the loss of human life, both in the air and on the ground. One question lingers for all who witnessed it: could total destruction be achieved without total human cost? Every bomb that hits a factory roof might disrupt a tank supply chain, but it also collapses ceilings, sends metal fragments through walls, and traps men who cannot escape. The tension between strategy and morality weighed heavily on Allied minds. As the 12-hour campaign continues, smoke begins to thicken, curling higher, blotting out the sun, casting the factories in shadows of gray and orange. Bombers rotate back, crews exhausted but exhilarated. Eyes strained, muscles aching, minds numb from adrenaline. The full scale of destruction becomes apparent. Streets once lined with workers now look like moonscapes. Roofs collapse, fires consume structures, and the sound of distant explosions echoes long after the bombs have fallen. By late afternoon, the operation is complete. Commanders assess the damage. Recon photos reveal nearly every critical target has been hit. Reports tally losses and successes, the numbers stark but the reality more human than statistics can convey. And yet, as officers and pilots glance at the ruins below, a subtle unease persists. For all the precision and planning, the enormity of destruction is overwhelming. Could any factory truly rise again? And here lies the quiet suspense that lingers as the sun dips toward the horizon. Will these strikes cripple Germany's war machine as intended, or will resilience and repair counterbalance the devastation? The answer would unfold only in the months ahead, as supply chains faltered, tank production slowed, and the Allies pushed forward into the heart of Europe. October 14, 1943, 5:45 a.m. The air smells sharp, tinged with the metallic bite of fuel and the faint, acrid smoke from last night's distant fires. A thin layer of fog hangs low over the rolling fields near Regensburg, Germany, catching the pale orange of the rising sun. Somewhere above, the rumble begins, soft at first, like distant thunder, then louder, closer, until the low roar of engines shakes the ground. The earth vibrates under boots and equipment as men tense, gripping binoculars and maps, feeling the morning chill in their fingers. From the command post at RAF Nordholt, General Ira Eaker leans over a series of maps, the corners curling slightly from repeated handling. His eyes scan rows of symbols representing factories, roads, and rail lines, each a lifeline of the Nazi war machine. Somewhere over the horizon, P-47 Thunderbolts streak past, leaving thin trails of smoke behind, their engines screaming as they climb into the fragile morning sky. You can almost feel the heat of their exhaust even from miles away. Inside the bunker, officers whisper, their words almost lost under the drone of approaching bombers. The smell of wet canvas and burning wood mingles with the sharp tang of ink on briefing charts. A young aide steps close, and the edge of the map crinkles beneath their weight. Outside, the first flares of incendiary bombs are already lighting up the distant factories, little sparks that will soon become a raging inferno. This was no ordinary mission. It was a 12-hour marathon of destruction. Schweinfurt and Regensburg, ball-bearing factories critical to the German war effort, every turn of a machine, every worker's hand, every shipment at risk of being obliterated. The planning had been meticulous, almost surgical. Routes, altitudes, timing, everything calculated to minimize losses while maximizing damage. And yet, as the bombs fall, there is a tension that no amount of preparation can erase. Eye in the skies, pilots feel it too. Hands white-knuckled on controls, sweat beating under helmets, the roar of engines masking the occasional whisper of fear. Each formation tight, precise, yet fragile. One mistake, one miscalculation, could send dozens of men spiraling to the earth. The bomber gunner's eyes flick to the sky again and again, searching for the jagged silhouettes of Luftwaffe fighters. Somewhere in the clouds, German anti-aircraft flak waits like hungry predators, glowing orange as it arcs toward the bombers. The scale of the operation is dizzying. Over 300 bombers, each carrying tons of high explosives and incendiaries, slicing through the thin morning light. The sound is deafening, a combination of engines, wind, and the faint, terrifying whistle of falling bombs. On the ground, soldiers in observation posts take note, their hands shielding eyes from the early sun, watching silhouettes of smoke curling against the sky, wondering if the factories can survive such relentless assault. I in the command center, Eaker's voice is calm, measured, even soothing, but his mind races. He knows the stakes. The factories are not just buildings, they are the heart of Germany's military capability. Destroy them, and the front lines falter. Fail, and the war rages on with more soldiers dying on both sides. He scans the aerial reconnaissance photographs, the gray blobs of concrete and steel, imagining what the explosions will do. Soon, these precise diagrams will be replaced by rubble. Even with all the planning, even with all the experience, no one could fully prepare for the sight of total destruction unfolding in real time. How does a human mind process hours of fire, smoke, and steel collapsing under relentless bombing? How do commanders reconcile victory with the scale of human and industrial loss beneath the clouds? By mid-morning, the first reports arrive. Wire after wire, radio after radio, flak damage, bomber losses, successful strikes. Officers nod silently, digesting each update while the distant thunder of falling bombs continues like some relentless drumbeat. A factory that was once humming with machinery and workers is now a field of smoke and twisted metal, a gray scar on the landscape, and yet, as the first hour turns into the second, then the third, the scale of what they've unleashed begins to fully sink in. Outside, in the skies, the remaining bombers adjust altitude, circling back to regroup. On the ground, Eaker and his staff exchange terse glances, each one silently asking, can an entire industrial city survive this? The tension is unbearable. The smell of cordite and oil grows stronger. Smoke from the distant cities curls upward, blotting out the sun at times, and the sound of distant explosions vibrates through every wall of the command post. Somewhere below, German workers scramble, trying to save what they can, unaware that the heart of their industry is about to be erased. Minutes stretch into hours. By now, the 12-hour campaign is only halfway done, and every commander, every officer, every pilot senses the magnitude of what they are part of. This is a war not fought just with bullets and tanks, but with strategy, calculation, and the raw power of aviation unleashed over an entire region. And then comes a question, quiet but sharp, slicing through the roar of engines and explosions. When the smoke finally clears, will there even be a factory left to count?